Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Is the music overpowering or? All right, good. So I'll just give an update. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I know this meeting is scheduled to begin at 4. I just wanted to give an update. We'll get started at 4:05 today. Again, we'll get started at 4:05 just to give everybody some time to join us. Thank you. Hi, good afternoon again. Thank you for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started at 4:05 just to give everybody a chance to join. So again, at 4:05, we'll get started. Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry about that. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin Polito. I'm the Neighborhood Affairs Manager with the City of Miami Beach. Welcome to our City Manager Search Town Hall. So this afternoon, we have Commissioner Steinberg joining us, as well as Vice Mayor Stephen Miner and his aide, as well as Commissioner Steinberg's aide is also joining us. Commissioner Mark Samuelin is here. And we do have the aide for Mayor Dan Gelber as well. So today, during today's meeting, what we're going to do is we're going to have a presentation by our consultant, Mr. Robert Burge, as well as some city staff that you'll hear from. At the end of the presentation, we'll ask you to please, if you have any questions about the search, please go ahead and raise your hand. And if you also, we encourage you to share any comments that you have about the search regarding the next city manager. On the call as well, you have our city attorney, Mr. Rafael Paz, our chief resiliency officer, Amy Knowles, who you'll hear from, our city clerk, Rafael Granado, and our communications director, Tanya Daniels. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'll ask Mr. Robert Burge to introduce himself. And for our panelists today, if you just signal to me whenever you need to go to the next slide, that would help. Mr. Burge?
Thank you. My name is Robert Berg, and I'm a partner in the firm of Ralph Andersen and Associates. And how about that iconic world-class Miami Beach shot? I love that picture. Next slide. Okay. So we are a national firm. That's important. This is the mayor and commission have asked for a national recruitment. Our firm has been in business for 49 years, since 1972. We are based out of Northern California, about 20 miles east of Sacramento. And I am physically based out of the west coast of Florida, about 50 miles south of Tampa Bay. And I've been a partner in the firm for, this is my 17th year, and it's my 42nd year of my career, where I've had 3 chapters. I started out in Navy healthcare, retiring as a commander back in 1995, and then I was appointed by the Speaker of the House, Speaker Foley, in 1995 to run the health system for the United States Capitol, taking care of House and Senate staff, and probably over 5 million visitors, and the Supreme Court, taking care of seated justices, retired justices, their staff, and again, all the tourists. So 2 out of 3 branches of government, the legislative and judicial branches. And again, I'm a partner in this firm, so I'm in my 17th year. Next slide. That's a small picture of our building, which basically no one has occupied since last March with COVID. And I'm sure everyone can relate to that. We have 17 staff, and again, national recruitment practice based out of Northern California. Next slide, please.
Thank you. So now,
I'm sorry.
Hi there. Thank you so much. And now we'll introduce Amy Knowles.
Thank you.
Hi, well, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. My name is Amy Knowles. I am the Chief Resilience Officer for the City of Miami Beach. I'm here today because not only do I lead the city's resilience efforts, I'm also the lead on strategic planning, and under that is our city's satisfaction survey. It's an incredibly important tool that we do use as a city to understand the community's priorities. And this has been made available to the recruitment firm and is available to all of you and to any folks seeking the position in terms of understanding the community's priorities. So next slide. So what I wanted to share is a little bit about some highlights of the survey. I will also share the methodology, some of the major findings, some of the most important priorities that need to be addressed from this perspective, and also share our dashboard, which is an interactive analysis tool to understand further the city's priorities based on some different categories. So in this slide, you'll see that the survey was conducted in 2019 by ETC Institute, which is a third-party market research firm. They've conducted surveys in over 900 different cities, more than 2 million people, so they're an experienced third-party firm. Random sample of households were selected for the survey. They were mailed the survey and given the options 3 ways to respond: by mail, by phone, or online. The sample size is about over 1,300 resident surveys. This is actually very good in terms of survey size. The confidence level is 95%, meaning that if the survey was repeated 100 times, 95% of the times the results would come back the same, with a margin of error plus or minus about 2.5%. It is representative of our city's demographics. That was one of our requirements, similar to recent census estimates. And the surveys were spread evenly across 5 geographical areas in the city. Next slide. So as I mentioned, here's how we actually use the survey. I mentioned the results are very important to us. It helps us assess satisfaction with not only city services and make improvements, but also on some of those more strategic, big issues that we face as a city. So nearly all city services have rankings in here. It represents all residents that really may not have time or the ability to attend community meetings. Perhaps they don't have the ability to reach out to really explain how they feel about city services. But this is a true representation of the city's priorities. We also use this to help guide our strategic plan, our budget. We've linked many of the results to our general obligation bond projects and in our communications. So this data is actually used within our strategic plan to indicate how we're doing as a city. We also use this data in our city commission memoranda to highlight any data that can inform decision making. And then finally, I did mention that we have a full dashboard, and our city commission was also briefed fully on the survey a couple years ago when it first came out. We do train our department directors and staff with the results as well, and it gives us the ability to measure trends over time and compare to other cities. Next slide. So I will get to the bottom line first and give a brief summary of findings. First, the first finding is that Miami Beach is setting the standard for service delivery and public engagement. One of the things a survey company does is to compare us to other cities across the country, and overall satisfaction of city services rated 19% above the national average. So that benchmark, very important. That was something we were very obviously happy to see as a city, even though we're always striving to improve. Another very important highlight was that the overall satisfaction for public engagement rated 29% above the national average. So that was, those were 2 outstanding observations our survey consultant made. Second is that Miami Beach is moving in the right direction. So when we compare ourselves to ourselves a few years ago, the satisfaction ratings increased or stayed the same in 14 or 15 of the major services that were assessed. And so this is obviously a very good thing to look at these trends over time. And interestingly, the percentage of residents who would recommend the city as a place to live increased to 10% since 2016. So we also have important areas to address, listing the top 5 right here. And these top 5 items ranked very important by residents also came in at lower satisfaction. So it gives us the indication as a city of where we need to focus our efforts, that we're focusing on the things that matter the most. First is homelessness. Very important to address. It is a concern for many cities and most cities. However, we did make progress, increasing 7 percentage points since the last survey. Every warm city faces this issue, and our consultant did point out to us he has never seen a city make progress. So still working on that, but it's a good thing to know. The conditions of streets and also cleanliness of streets, more of those ongoing service issues that are still very important to residents. Number 3 is efforts to manage stormwater drainage and flooding, indicative of some of the resilience challenges we face and wanting the city to keep focusing on this effort. And then 4 is quality of police services. Again, wanting stress for that to continue. Next slide. So this next slide shows how we're doing in comparison to the other areas. This is specifically for city services. Couple things I wanted to point out is that we do exceed Florida and the national averages. It has many different questions. There are over 100 questions on the survey. These are just some of the highlights. A couple things to point out is that park and recreation actually was more than 20% higher than the national average when it comes to pools, athletic facilities, and recreational programs. And again, most of these areas are exceeded. So again, just important for us to be able to understand how we compare to others. Next slide. On our community dashboard, there's a way to kind of dig in, and each question has an overall high-level analysis as well as a deeper level dive. So in thinking about whether to recommend the city as a place to live, you can see each one has a little that says plus 9.8%. That's the change since the last survey. And then at the bottom is a breakdown in terms of people's ratings. So most ratings, again, increased since 2016. Next slide. So I mentioned that residents are satisfied with most services. So 69% of residents gave positive ratings for overall quality. About 9% gave negative ratings, so 1 out of 10 people. And again, there was an increase there. And on the dashboard, you can dive in and see the different details. Next slide. There's a survey highlights area where you can learn a little bit more about the top items for us to address as a city. I mentioned homelessness. You can see that as number 1 there. On the right-hand side, you'll see a trend arrow. The upward green means that's more than, there's an increase that's significant, meaning that it's more than a few percentage points, and there was a change from last time. As you click on either of these, you do see further information. Next slide. The next slide shows a little breakdown about homelessness. We have about 30.4% satisfaction with the city's efforts to address homelessness. Again, it's increased since last time. There is a breakdown by age, as you can see, and this is, I think, very interesting to show that there is a different perception among age groups on how we are doing, with the most satisfied, those being 65 and up. There's also a spatial analysis where you can see by geography and by neighborhood satisfaction as well, with the greater satisfaction levels being the darker blue and the lesser satisfaction levels being the lighter blue. So again, another way for us to understand some of the major feedback. The next slide does the same thing for police services, also breaking it down by age, breaking it down by geographic distribution, a little bit closer in terms of the breakdown between population and age. But we can see again, those over 65 a little bit more satisfied, with the least satisfied being between 35 and 41. And again, you've got the geographic breakdown as well. Next slide. So there's quite a bit of more information on all these different areas. Again, very important to provide this to the recruitment firm when they think about discussing priorities of the city with the applicants. There's 13 different categories ranging from sustainability and resilience to cleanliness to communications to mobility and many additional topics. The link is here before you, miamibbeach.gov/cityhall/citymanager, and you can access the dashboard as well. So I'm happy to provide this for the meeting today, and I'll turn it back over to Robert.
Thank you.
Robert, before you jump in, do you mind if I say a few words?
Please, sir.
Just for good afternoon, everybody. I'm Acting City Attorney Rafael Paz, and I just wanted to set the context a little bit because we're eager to dive right in and let Mr. Berg go through what he's doing in terms of the selection process for the manager. But I just want to emphasize that the selection of a city manager is really one of the very most, and if not the most important decisions that our mayor and our commissioners will make. And it's a role that the commission has expressly recognized is extremely important to them and that they're taking very seriously. And back in November, after our city manager, Jimmy Morales, resigned, the commission tasked the city clerk, the city attorney, and our procurement director to engage a procurement process to select a recruitment firm. And the commission interviewed multiple firms and selected Mr. Berg's firm. The commission has also, at this point, approved a timeline for the selection of the manager. They approved the job profile for the manager, which is, the process is out on the street, and Mr. Berg is doing his work of drumming up national interest in the position, as well as local interest, because we have very strong internal candidates as well. But I just wanted to highlight just how important it was that for the commission to not only engage in a robust process, make sure that the city clerk, the attorney, and the procurement director have some oversight into the process to make sure it's all done in a transparent manner, but also to continually obtain feedback, including feedback from our residents. And Amy Knowles has highlighted all of the feedback from the resident surveys that we already have, which will be a very useful starting point for the discussions of who is best positioned to continue to do the work that the administration has been doing to focus on the areas that our residents care about. So that's the context, and we're obviously here to answer questions. I don't want to, I know Mr. Berg will get into the details, but applications are due on March 1st, and then he'll get into what that process, he'll take it from there and go through, what that involves in terms of reviewing the applications and the selecting the final candidates and getting a new manager on board, hopefully as soon as possible. Thanks, and sorry to interrupt, Robert.
No, thank you. I couldn't have said it better. I mean, that tees me up and sets a good starting point to talk about the ideal candidate in the process for a national recruitment for Miami Beach. So every one of these recruitments that we do nationally is unique. Every culture is unique. And as we talk about what the commission, the community, the staff, what everyone's looking for in an ideal, basically CEO for Miami Beach, it's complicated. And it's complicated in the sense, oftentimes when I do these, you have challenges other than the mission or the needs of the community or a city. In this case, I think this particular recruitment, and I've been doing this for, like I said, 17 years, is very unique in the way that my sense of the community is they want to be the best in the country, in the world. I get the sense that the mayor and commission want to be the best in the world. And I haven't dealt with all the employees of the city of Miami Beach, but I've certainly worked with some of the senior executives, and some of them are on the screen participating today. And I got to tell you, it's a high performance organization. And I don't say that lightly. So the challenge is, when we're looking at ideal men and women to assume the role as CEO, they have to be up to the challenge. The challenge isn't managing dysfunction. This is a world-class opportunity, a world-class city, but you also have major opportunities and challenges. So as I speak to people nationally, part of, I think, the decision process to apply is, can they keep up? Do they have the track record, the reputation, the skill set, the bottom line, the gravitas to succeed as the CEO in Miami Beach? Next slide. Thank you. So this list, it's really a framework of a view from 30,000 feet to strategize and be a visionary. Very, very basic but important skill set. Have the strength to lead, the courage to do the right thing. Set the example for others to follow, leading by example. Seek accountability at all levels. And I'm not talking about being a servant leader as a buzzword to citizens and council, someone that has a reputation and verifiable track record of being a servant leader. Being data driven, very, very important. And we just saw a very detailed community survey and use words like dashboard, benchmarking. You have a database to measure against, looking at other best practices. That's a very important skill set. Supportive of staff is going to be critical. You have to have the ability to set clear expectations, provide support and resources, and get things done through others. And a sense of humor would go a long way. Next slide. View from 30,000 feet. Now let's get more specific. We believe, and this is from a proprietary model, big shock, 16 competencies. Every recruitment I've ever done talks about leadership, people skills, and communication. So amongst these 4 themes, self-awareness, and I'm going to break them out, compelling vision, people skills, and style of execution. Now let's get more specific, but those are the 4 major themes of a seasoned executive. Next slide. Well-cultivated self-awareness. That's a fancy way of saying good sense of self, or how about checking your ego at the door? We all have an ego, but the ability to not have an ego in this role. Living by personal conviction and possessing emotional intelligence. Checking your ego at the door. Next slide. It's not about the CEO, it's about the mission. Having a compelling vision, being a visionary, communicating that vision clearly, earning loyalty and trust. Oftentimes people say, we want a visionary. And I'll say, what does that mean? Because you can have the best vision on the planet, but if you don't have the ability to implement or execute that vision, it's not worth the paper it's written on. And that's going to take a unique skill set. Next slide. Again, the ability to get things done with people, developing teams, getting staff excited about whatever they're working on, giving feedback, positive and negative, but doing it in a way that's meaningful and constructive, listening like you mean it. When we talk about masterful communication, a large part of that is listening skills, really, and not optics, really listening to the community, to the commission, to staff, and mentoring others. Next slide. The next CEO should have the ability and track record to make the governance body, I'm talking about the mayor and commission, a more effective policy-making body. The ability to cultivate adaptability, driving results, generating informal power, making good decisions, and stimulating creativity. And that means sometimes taking risks, hopefully leveraged or calculated risks. But that's how we learn and grow. Next slide. The summary of those 4 major themes and those 6 competencies is the ability to take that vision, build teams around strategy, and execute. That's what everyone's looking for. And I'm going to say that's harder than it looks. That's a unique ability. Career experience. These are typical. These are some of the themes that are built into the recruiting profile, which you can see on our website. If you go to Ralph Andersen and Associates, you'll see a multi-page recruiting profile that we're benchmarking against nationally. That's what we're sharing to these municipal leaders throughout the country. Some of the important ones are experience as a city manager. However, they can be a number 2 or number 3, depending on the size of the organization. You're 90,000 population and change, but what makes you unique, pre-COVID, on any given day, you could have 200,000 to 300,000 tourists. You are a world-class destination. Public sector experience, local government experience. Could it be someone from the private sector? It could, but they would have to have a remarkable ability to adapt to a public sector culture and environment. There's a lot of rules, but I wouldn't exclude it, and I've seen it done on occasion. Experience in an agency of a similar size, scope, and complexity. They could come from a smaller organization if they have the chutzpah or gravitas to manage the complexity of a Miami Beach. I believe Miami Beach punches way above its weight. This is going to take a very unique individual, he or she. Change management experience. That's the ability to make constructive change without, the nice way is without minimal organizational disruption. So again, bringing people together, getting buy-in, getting them excited. You can make people do things or you can get them to believe in it, and that's what really brings sustainable outcomes. Experience bringing a strong economic base. You folks have a lot of hotels. I mean, you're a huge economic engine, which is fantastic. Track record of strong commission relations. The ability to work with the governance is going to be critical, the policymakers, because the CEO's role is to help make effective, to assist in support of making effective policy. But once those decisions are made, the importance is to work with staff to implement those policy decisions. A track record of community relations. I always look for people that understand the importance of customer service, because I believe personally, the reason this role exists is to serve the public, period. The raison for d'etre, the reason for existence is service. But the city manager can be excellent in customer service. If the staff isn't so good, do they get an A or an F? It has to be a culture of service. So again, going back with the ability to get folks excited, get them pulling the oars in the same direction. Outstanding public relations skills, critical. And that ties again to communication. I think there's a maturity in that, because again, you have maturity and timing to understand the CEO's role. Experience with Florida rules and regulations. Every state, every region has their own finance, legislative, culture. There's a lot of rules. We're a national firm. You have very well-trained staff. Someone can come from another part of the country and they can learn, whether it's your sunshine law or whatever. We do it all the time. So it's not a showstopper, but they have to have the ability to come in and learn your organization, your state, your rules. History of strong accountability and performance. Again, you heard me say, we're looking for folks with a proven and verifiable track record and reputation. Everyone looks good on paper, or should, including recruiting firms. But it's important, we have to verify that performance, that reputation. A proven ability to create, maintain momentum, and effectively lead. Critical. And that's going to come to style and your ability to bring people together and relationships. I cannot emphasize more the importance of relationships internally and externally across the board. And the bottom line, a proven track record of getting things done is going to be critical. Next slide. When this list was made, it was before I looked at your, and I think your community survey is fantastic, but you'll see similar things. These are national things that most cities are facing, just generically. And when you look at your community survey, there are several of these are on the list. Public safety is huge, police and fire. homelessness and poverty, infrastructure, road conditions, traffic congestion, and specific to Miami Beach, you flood. You're a coastal city, hurricanes, sea level rise. These are big environmental issues that the next CEO is going to inherit. The economy, business climate, economic and business development, and done. And part of one of the themes is going to be, all of this has to be done in post-COVID recovery, because there has been an economic impact in the last year across the nation. Jobs, housing and affordable housing, service for seniors, disabled and youth, parks and recreation, libraries, city services, garbage, sewer, water, public transportation, arts and culture. At this point, I'd like to turn it back over to Kevin to engage the community on the search process. And I'm standing by ready to answer any questions when you need me to weigh in.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So at this time, what we would like to do is we are going to ask anyone who has a question about the search process specifically, please click the raise your hand feature. We do have, I think, one caller on the line, so you could click *9 on your mobile device. Before we get started, I do want to recognize Miss Diana Fontani joined from Commissioner Gongora's office, so she's on the line, in addition to the other elected officials I mentioned earlier. So again, if you want to ask a question, please keep it specific to the search process. If you want to share some feedback and maybe characteristics you want to see out of the next city manager, we are recording this meeting. We will make this meeting available to Mr. Byrd, so he could go back and take all your feedback into account. So again, if you have any questions, click the raise your hand feature and click *9 on your phone. If you're on a mobile Zoom app, you would have to click, there's 3 buttons that say more, and then you could raise your hand that way. So I'm gonna go to our first caller, Mr. Daniel Vaitia. Hi there, Daniel.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much. Love the new background. Looks great. Robert, really nice to meet you. Kevin, are we only allowed to ask questions about the search process, or could we give our comments about what we want to see in a city manager at this moment?
At this moment, both. You could ask questions about the search process, and please give any comments on the next city manager.
Yeah, so Robert, have a lot of confidence in your company and the presentation you provided. So I know you're going to go out there and get us the best city manager possible. We are a strong city manager form of government. And what I want to see out of my city manager is a strong manager that can manage and handle all the administrative tasks for our city. I'm concerned that with a weak city manager, we don't have the structure that we need to successfully run our city. And I feel, my personal opinion, that we've suffered from that over the last few years. So I think I'd like to see someone that has direct experience in being a strong city manager, that knows how to work with the commissioners and knows how to take back the responsibilities that we rely on our city manager, so that we can get a real well-functioning city government that can deal with all of the issues that we're dealing with. As you understand and showed in your presentation, we are an international destination, we're a global destination, and we're currently suffering from a lot of issues. And I think with a very strong city manager, we'll be able to make our city and bring it back to its glory days and its, high level of efficiency and city services. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Vaitia.
Thank you.
Excellent. So again, if you want to make a comment, ask a question regarding the search, maybe characteristics you'd like to see, please click raise your hand. If you're on calling into the meeting, click *9. Next caller, Mr. Ronald Starkman.
Yes, thank you. Excellent presentation. I understand that you'll be certainly speaking with internal candidates as part of the process. That's great. Also, I assume you'll be advertising nationally in publications where people looking for these kinds of positions might be looking for those postings. But can you talk a little bit about how you might be going about finding people who are not actively looking for a job, but would be great candidates for the position?
No, great question. So everyone places ads. That to me is a punch out. That's the easiest thing you can do. The real way to find the right folks, he and she, is to design a national outreach strategy, and then you have to aggressively call people, the right people, because we are looking for someone, he or she, that doesn't even know or hasn't even been considering the city of Miami Beach. And my job is to get them to take a look at it, the right people, and try to lure them away to consider the city of Miami Beach. So I hope that answers your question. The challenge, again, if they do have that emotional intelligence we were talking about, or well-cultivated self-awareness, when people call me, I said, take a look, watch some of these commission meetings, because they're pretty high impact. I mean, these are very educated folks that I believe work well together. And the next CEO, because it is the chief executive officer, you are a council manager form of government, to the previous gentleman's well-made point, has to have the ability to keep up. So there are some folks that take a look and they're just not up for the challenge. And I appreciate that. And we're looking for folks that have the track record and confidence to go through this process and be considered by the mayor and commission. And I hope that answered your question, sir.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And we'll go to our next caller is Mr. Matthew Goltanoff. Hi there, Matthew. Can you hear us?
Yes. Hi, Robert.
there.
Thank you for taking resident feedback.
No, it's my pleasure.
Our next
sir.
city manager must understand that roads aren't just for vehicles, they're for people too. They should have a demonstrable track record that reflects this. I saw on your focus slide you mentioned traffic congestion. We're unique in that a large portion of our residents get around our small, dense urban barrier island by foot, bike, and transit, not just private cars. We need a world-class city manager that understands this. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you for your comments. So with that, at this point, we do not have any other callers, so we'll give one more minute. Anyone, again, if you would like to make a comment, ask a question, please, at this time, click raise your hand so we know how many are in the queue. I see we have 2 just popped up, so I'm going to go to Mr. Daniel Serraldo. Daniel?
Yes, hi, thank you, Daniel Serraldo, speaking as a local resident. Thank you for the presentation. I missed the beginning of it, and I'm not sure if you addressed it yet, but I was wondering, is it legally possible to require a city manager to live in Miami Beach? I know it's been, I think, almost a decade that we have had a non-resident city manager. And I'm just wondering if other cities have done something similar and whether that might be possible here. Thank you.
Do you want me to take that one?
So with that, let me see if
Yeah,
you could maybe start that.
All right, Counselor,
have
let me
our
take a
city
stab
attorney-
at this.
Wait,
So
Sorry,
hold on.
Mr. Berg, we have our city attorney. I think he's going to jump in there.
Thank you. So, and I'll let you answer what other cities have done, Robert, but in this case, the commission's already made the decision that it was not going to require the candidate to be a resident, and I think the job profile reflects the consensus of the commission in this case, that residency in the city would be a plus, but they, were very clear that it would not be a requirement, or a minimum qualification for the job. We want, the very best candidate. We want as large a pool as possible to give the commission, maximum flexibility. It is an important consideration. I'm a resident too. I can see how residents would like for their city officials to live in the city, but is it legally required? Whether it is or it isn't, it isn't as part of this selection.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. So we'll jump over to Mr. Wayne Roberts.
Thank you. A lot of people in the city have an issue with the pay scale for the city manager. I'm kind of the opposite, because in private enterprise, CEOs of 2,000 plus employee firms, make probably on average double what a city manager makes. So I'm wondering what the pay range is for the position. Also, what sort of contract range are we talking about in terms of tenure, a number of years in an employment agreement? Thank you.
You want me to
Thank
jump?
you. So, Mr. Berg, if you want to answer maybe the first part of that question, I see,
Yeah,
and we're here to help.
I'd be happy to. So I'm pretty sure that the previous city manager's base in his at-will contract was 310 plus package, and the way we're approaching this, the language in the recruiting profile is provide a competitive executive compensation depending on qualifications. So I'm going to say the jury's not back in on that. I actually agree with you with this gentleman's comment, but it's not my decision. But it does impact my ability to recruit. There are people out there nationally that would be, I think, very exciting options for Miami Beach, but there are two important considerations that are challenges for me. One is the open records law in the state of Florida. You have to understand there are quality people that don't want their name and they don't want their current organizations knowing that they're considering something. So that's a challenge. And number two is how high can we really go? How high? And I'm going to say the jury's not back in on that. I cannot speak for the mayor and commission. That's going to be their decision. But you're right. There are people out there, top people in the country, that are their base compensations are considerably higher than what Jimmy was making in his base salary. But I hope I answered your question. And please, someone else weigh in.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So,
and Kevin, if I could just add, in terms of we haven't been given direction to outline a compensation package that will, this is a qualifications-based selection, and then we'll engage in a contract negotiation. And just to answer Mr. Roberts' the second part of his question in terms of the term, generally prior employment contracts have had a term of 3 to 5 years. And of course, they're all, terminable for convenience or for cause.
excellent. Thank you. So I see, Wayne, you put your hand back up. So I'll just jump back to you. You are I think we have two, actually we have two callers who want to make a second statement. So.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to redress the question. So I just don't understand how we're not giving, in fairness, the recruiter the ability to vocalize to the talent pool that's out there what our compensation package is, and therefore it makes it, I guess they would base it on previous managers' positions or compensation, as determining what their upside is. But I would suspect that we could find our budget is somewhere with sewer and all the expenses associated with outside of the general budget, like $750 million a year, I think. So, the city manager is probably the most important role that the city could have. Combining the whole commission, I think the city manager is probably the most important role that the city could have. And I think we should compensate them effectively. And $500,000 or $600,000 wouldn't be out of the question if we could get somebody that can really fix the city. And but to not tell the candidates what they can expect, they're going to assume that the 300 is the ceiling, and I don't think you're going to really attract the best talent with that. So I would hope the commission would expand that and open up that opportunity for the recruiter to really gain the talent that we need. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Roberts. So we're going to Mr. Daniel Beitia put his hand up. Just had a second comment there. This will be our last caller.
Yeah, I agree with the comments of the recruiter that, we need to go into negotiation. We can't have a salary cap. When I'm looking for a top talent, I don't advertise the compensation. The compensation is negotiated based on their talent and the skill sets. But I do agree that if we find a candidate out there that we feel is the perfect fit for this city, that can deal with all the issues we're dealing with, because this is a 24/7 job, 365 days a year, that the commission be open to negotiating that salary that's desired by them. We should be looking for the best candidate and not restrict the best candidate based on a salary, because we have over a $300 million a year operating budget alone. And, a good manager can make the city more efficient and find quadruple the amount of savings in the first year based on the increase in salary. I mean, that's the type of individual we're looking for. And I like the reference to a CEO, because when you're searching for a CEO, you're searching for someone that can make sure the company succeeds. You're not searching for someone that can fit within the expense that you're looking for them to fulfill the job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beitia. And with that, that is our last caller. I don't see any other hands up. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Robert Birch for some final thoughts.
And sorry, just Kevin, before doing that, just to clarify that there is no cap right now. We don't have specific direction in terms of a range or parameters, but there is no cap. So it is subject to negotiation with the most qualified candidates that are selected for final interviews. Thanks.
Yeah, and just to keep it on an even playing field, and these aren't excuses, but these are the rules. And what the interim city attorney just said is true. No one's capped it for me, and that's why it's dependent on qualifications. But ultimately, it'll be up to the mayor and commission what they decide to do. But I'm certainly not authorized to say, hey, we can go X. It's to be determined. The cost of housing, to one of the gentlemen said, hey, can they live within Miami Beach? Philosophically, the best of the best that I've seen always want to live within the city. But the reality, it is expensive. And I've had calls where, hey, Robert, I have a 5,000 square foot here home with a family. Where am I going to live? I can't get that in Miami Beach unless you're spending a lot of money. So those are realities. The open records law is a reality, but we navigate the best we can. And also within the state of Florida, by legislation, it's 20 weeks severance, where most of these organizations nationally outside of the state of Florida, they typically range from 3 months to 12 months. I've seen 2 years. I'm not even sure that's legal. Depends on what state you're in. But typically, most of these people, that's their parachute. That's what leverages the risk coming into a new organization, is that negotiated severance package. So there's a lot of parts to negotiating compensation. And my job right now is just get to folks and get them interested without committing. But I'm a recruiter, I'm a consultant. So my job is to garner interest, to sell all the good things about Miami Beach and also the challenges as well. And if they're afraid of the challenges, they're not going to succeed in this role. You have to be up to the challenge. This is a big job. It's a very complex role, as the last few callers stated. I just want to thank you for allowing me to participate in this town hall process. And
thank you, Robert. And if we could ask, maybe if you could speak to the timeline of the process of what our residents could expect. And we do have a few slides if you want to use those.
why don't we just go to that search process timeline
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here.
with that really interesting, I don't know what that is. So,
Are you able to see my screen?
yeah, we can do that one. So in order to build the profile, I spoke with the mayor and the commission and some other key stakeholders to get a sense of what they were looking for in their next CEO. And I got the sense they really do want a CEO. You are a charter manager form of government, not just a city manager, but a CEO. We developed the recruitment brochure, which is available on our website. Check it out. It actually looks very, very good. You have some beautiful pictures. Proactive personal outreach strategy. So we're in that 45-day outreach phase. Actually, as of today, we have a little over 2 weeks before the outreach closes. And of course, there's ongoing evaluation adjustment in the process. Next slide. Which is the search process timeline. There we go. So you can see February 11th today, we're here. So we've done the stakeholders, we developed the profile, we're in the 45-day outreach, and we have basically a little over 2 weeks remaining. The position closes, and then what's gonna happen is I have to start vetting folks, hopefully before March 1st, but we do allow resumes to come into 12 a.m. on the 1st. And I'm going to be presenting on March 15th to the mayor and commission the strengths and lesser strengths of each of these candidates. And then you see where they have interviews scheduled the week of the 29th. We never hire on our first interview. So you know, what we like to do is say hypothetically there's 6 and they narrow to the top 2. Then we suggest one-on-ones with each of the mayor and commission. And then hopefully we'll help with negotiating a contract in that hiring decision. And most likely prior to those interviews, somewhere in that time frame, we're going to do background. We do preliminary backgrounds, but at the client's request, we're going to do a deeper background, which includes criminal, civil, financial, primary, secondary, education. We check everything. Article search. They'll have all the articles when I present the candidate. We do a very thorough article search to make sure there's no surprises. Good and bad. Strengths and lesser strengths. And that pretty much summarizes the search timeline and steps.
Excellent, thank you for that. So we just completed our questions a little earlier. You now know the timeline. So with that, we could go ahead and we'll conclude today's meeting. As I mentioned, today's meeting was recorded. We'll provide a recording to the consultant and we'll make sure to make that available. So I thank you everybody for taking the time to join us this afternoon. Have a great rest of your